Hey folks, Alkers here with another test patch review, this time for patch 62707 that was released on September 7th, 2022. This is a pretty straightforward patch with just a couple key changes. Most notably, ships can now enter their team's coastal cities. Won't prevent hostile units from entering the city, and city docked ships can't attack or defend, but at least gives you a safe place for your ships to hang out. So it's worth noting, for this to work, you need to found the city on the actual coastal tile. So if I found a city here, that's not coastal, so a ship won't be able to enter. So I have to found the city either here or here. One more thing worth noting, if you have a situation like this, where a city can span across both bodies of water, you can actually found a city on that, and units will be able to move in between. So long as both of those are oceans. So if you hover over here, the tooltips, notice that says ocean. That's super important. If it shows lake, then ships cannot actually go into a lake. For example, here's a lake. If I hover over it, you'll see that the tooltip says water, lake clear in the bottom right, as opposed to water, ocean clear, and you can't have ships go into the lake. All right, so I've finally gotten a bireme out. I can put it in the city here, and it can just chill in the city. That's what that looks like. And then just to illustrate what I was talking about here, you can pass through a city. This is not new in this patch. This has always been the case. You can pass through a city to go between two ocean bodies, just like that. And the new thing is now you can actually have the ship sit in that city and chill. Can't attack and defend. The city can fall if it gets attacked, but you can sort of put the ship there. And potentially, if you've got opponents massing up ships, that lets you at least get a ship, and you can at least have one ship safely. It's not going to make too much of a difference if your opponent has a lot of ships, but every little bit helps, and at least lets you hide a ship in a coastal city. So it makes it a little more important to settle cities directly on the coast. Of course, settling cities directly on the coast does put you at risk of having those cities attacked by enemy ships, so there is a trade-off there. But all in all, a nice little change, continuing in the theme of small but gradual improvements to the game. Just a note here, you can't put two ships in one city. Only one ship actually fits in the city. The next change is a pretty significant one to urban improvements like fairs, palaces, odeons. It allows you to skip apprentice and master specialists on the highest level and skip apprentices on the middle level. And the specialist build time bonus has now been removed. That used to be that you would actually build specialists faster in the higher level tiers. Now you can just clearly skip the lower level tiers in the higher level tiers. This is a pretty significant change, I think a good one, because of the way specialist costs scale, with each specialist costing, I believe, 10% more civics to produce. This actually saves you on building specialists and upgrading them, so you can just build the highest level. So let's take a look at what this looks like in game. So we're here in Wasset, and I've just finished building an Odeon, a theater, and an amphitheater in this city. So those are the 3 ones for the Odeon improvement. So Odeon upgrades into theater, which upgrades into amphitheater. You'll see other urban improvements like the courthouse, ministry, palace line. These are ones that have specialists that have multiple ranks, and there's multiple ranks of the building. Notice that barracks, those specialists do have multiple ranks, but there's not multiple ranks of the building. And similarly for the monastery, there are multiple ranks of the specialist, but no multiple ranks of the monastery. Temples, monasteries, and cathedrals are different buildings with different specialists. It's only for these type of buildings like Odeons, theaters, amphitheaters, or courthouses, ministries, or palaces that have that specific scaling ability. Markets, grocers, and fairs are another example of a building that has that sort of scaling level of urban improvements. And while we're being comprehensive here, libraries are also of that same type, where you have philosophers that can go into the academy, the library, the academy, or the university. And usually these are unlocked by culture levels. So markets, libraries, courthouses, and baths actually is the last one of this type, require developing culture. It's worth noting Odeons do not require developing culture. It is just the theater that requires developing culture. So Odeons are available 1 tier lower, which is kind of nice. And lastly, for a quick reference, this is the Old World reference spreadsheet. In the Urban Buildings tab, you can actually see all this nicely laid out. So you'll see the market line that has the market, grocer, fair, that enables you to build a specialist in that building. That's one of these type of buildings. Libraries are another. Courthouses are another. Hamlets are not because they don't allow a specialist. Garrisons are not because they don't allow specialists. Barracks because they don't have the increasing tier aren't one of those. And Odeons and Baths are. So that's a nice quick reference on the spreadsheet that's linked in the description of this video as well. So let's take a look in game. We've got the Odeon, Theater, and Amphitheater. If we go in here, we see that we can build a apprentice poet here into the Odeon, the lowest level there. Or we can build a master poet at the second level in the theater, or we can build an elder poet right away in the amphitheater. So this is a nice way to skip. And since I've got a judge governor, I'm just going to rush that and end turn. And you'll see now at the subsequent turn that elder poet arrived all at once. You'll notice the cost of these specialists has now increased. Looks like the cost increase actually scaled for all three of those specialists. So there isn't a cost increase discount. It's 48 civics instead of 40 civics as it was before. I would have expected it to go up by 10%. Instead, it went up further, probably because it's counting each of those as having been built. It's basically giving me all the ranks. So it's counting those as having had specialists constructed. But I can easily, so basically that means that you can get elder specialists very easily at the top tier of the building. Of course, that does have a pretty significant culture requirement. You can't build an amphitheater until you have strong culture. You can't build a theater until you have developing culture. Odeons you can build right away. See the spreadsheet for reference as to when for other buildings. But basically it makes culture a little more important because it lets you get those elder levels of spreadsheet, elder level of specialists faster. And most importantly, when you're rushing with judge governors, it only costs one rush cost. You don't have to pay multiple rush costs because normally if I wanted to get an elder one, I would have had to build an apprentice, rush it or build it, and then build a master, rush it or build it. And now I can just build that elder right away, and it saves me a little bit of time. Previously, the fastest way to get elder was 3 turns, now 1 turn if I have that appropriate building of the appropriate culture. So all in all, really interesting change. Curious how that's going to change up some of the strategic meta around specialists that you build and culture buildings that you go after, given that it lets you build those specialists a little better. Will be interesting to see how things evolve. That's pretty much it for the significant changes in the patch. Remaining ones are the player victory has been added to the turn summary and play by cloud email. New units are now placed on XP improvements like barracks, ranges, and harbors by default instead of trying to place them in the city. That's nice. It saves you a couple orders. And sometimes you produce a unit and then you immediately want to move it to a barracks so it can upgrade, get that passive XP. This just happens automatically. And then the Hill MP duel scenario for an online tournament has been added. So excited to see that one in-game in the test patch and hopefully soon in live. Some UI changes, and then a bunch of bug fixes. So all in all, a small but impactful patch. I think the ship thing is a nice quality of life thing, as is the specialist building construction change. So Old World continues to iteratively improve. Always glad to see. Have a good one.